Hello everyone, welcome to the program. I'm Chamberlain Oso at Channels Television here in Lagos. Stay tuned in the next half hour for stories of interest from Nigeria and around the continent.
And I'm Vincent Makori, Voice of America, coming to you from Studio 52 at our global headquarters in Washington.
Although many of them are still being held by Boko Haram, there's joy in Nigeria over the release of 21 of the Chibok girls as they came under the government's custody. President Buhari assured the girls and the families of the best care the government can offer. Here's our report.
Singing and dancing amid tears of joy, the culmination of over 900 days of waiting for the safe return of these daughters of Chibok from the grip of Boko Haram terrorists. It all began on the 14th of April 2014 when over 200 schoolgirls were abducted from their dormitories at Government Girls Secondary School Chibok by the militants. An incident that sparked off outrage from around the world and led to the emergence of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign group, which mounted pressure on the government to rescue the girls. This is the outcome of a series of negotiations with the militants. Words cannot describe the horrors of their experiences while in captivity, but the joy of returning home to meet their families is enough to be thankful for. The parents, some of whom had lost hope of ever seeing their children again, expressed their joy.
What the woman is saying is that she is very grateful for God and for the government. What she didn't expect is the presence of her daughter that she has seen now. She said she didn't even expect that she'll set her eyes on the daughter.
Expectedly, the best form of support will be given to these girls in terms of rehabilitation, as the president explains while receiving them at the presidential villa.
These dear daughters of ours have seen the worst that the world has to offer. It is now time for them to experience the best that the world can do for them.
This feat is one the government is proud of, but insists on following through with its promise to Nigerians and the world to bring back the other girls at all costs.
Let's talk more about the release of the Chibok girls. And for that, we're joined via Skype by a security expert, Mr. Chidi Wanu. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
What was your initial reaction when you heard about the release of the girls?
My initial reactions were obviously joy and relief. Joy at the release of these girls, and joy for the families, for these young ladies, and also for the country that we've seen an end, or at least the beginning of the end to this traumatic experience, and also relief that Boko Haram has come through with one of their negotiating challenges. But from a security and a strategic point of view, one has to consider all the ramifications that this situation pertains to. For example, we could look at it that whilst we've got 21 out of 276 girls freed, there's still thousands of men, women, boys, and girls who are still abducted and who are still held captive by Boko Haram, who have not been released. So whilst this might be, a pleasant, chapter in this campaign, we still have a lot of work to do in terms of those who are Nigerian citizens or Cameroonian citizens as well, who are still being held captive by this group.
What do you think the negotiating team should consider in order to secure the release of the other girls?
I think the negotiating team has to be aware of, two limiting factors that, will dictate how they will conduct their negotiations. The first one is, the Nigerian overall objective, which is the defeat of Boko Haram in itself. That's the long-term objective as well, which is informed by the short-term objective of releasing the girls in of themselves. Now, balancing that is the Boko Haram objective of, imposing their will upon Nigeria and setting out, a caliphate of their own choosing. So for the negotiating team, they need to be aware that whatever they do is going to be something that has to help Nigeria to achieve that final objective of defeating or destroying Boko Haram. So if Boko Haram requires certain incentives such as food, fuel, weapons, ammunition, or money, or as they have inevitably asked for, release of their captives, all these things help Boko Haram achieve their final objective and do not help Nigeria achieve its final objective. So for the negotiating team, these things are what they have to bear in mind, how they're going to walk that fine line between giving Boko Haram enough that they're going to release these girls and also not giving them so much that it gives them an operational advantage in the conflict.
Now, there are fears in some quarters that the terrorists may just be using these negotiations for the girls to buy time and regroup. How valid do you think these concerns are?
I would say that the fears that this is just a delaying tactic are very valid. It's clear from counterinsurgencies around the world that most insurgents or terrorists use negotiations or ceasefires as opportunities to refit, rearm and reinforce themselves. So from our perspective, we have to be clear that Boko Haram will definitely use this as an opportunity not only to gain advantage in terms of whatever concessions they get from the government, but also get themselves ready for the next round of fighting. So as we've seen in Gashiga, Damasak, Malam Fatori, and places like this, Boko Haram is still in the field and is still fighting and is having some battlefield successes in these specific areas. So for the government, they need to be cognizant of this fact and also keep up the military pressure on Boko Haram. The fact that Boko Haram has agreed to this negotiation or given up these girls does not mean that Boko Haram has stopped fighting. Without military pressure, there will be no incentive for them to negotiate, and we will not achieve that final objective of Boko Haram being defeated.
Well, Mr. Chidiwanu, thank you for joining us on Africa 54.
Thank you for having me.
Well, an agreement last week in the Democratic Republic of Congo to delay elections by nearly 2 years to April 2018 and putting in place an interim power-sharing government. But all is not necessarily well. Emily Iob reports from Kinshasa.
After a month and a half of discussion, the 300 delegates adopted an agreement aimed at ending months of political crisis in the DRC. The Electoral Commission has said it is nowhere near ready to hold polls as scheduled in November.
Nous avons la tenue effective des élections. C'est le 29 avril 2018.
Will there be a political change at the end of this transition period? The answer is yes. Will we write a new constitution or modify the current one during this transition period? The answer is no.
Un référendum ou modifier la constitution, disons non.
The country's main opposition coalition boycotted the talks and has accused President Joseph Kabila of seeking to unlawfully extend his 15-year rule on the vast Central African nation. Violent protests 1 month ago in the capital left at least 56 people dead and several political headquarters torched. The new agreement allows Kabila to stay in power until the next presidential poll, but he will be joined by a member of the opposition in the post of prime minister.
Dans la lecture de l'accord, vous verrez que chaque parti a fait des concessions majeures.
When you read the agreement, you will see that each party has made a lot of concessions in a bid to go to free, fair, and peaceful elections accepted by everyone.
The Secretary General of the Presidential Party added that the agreement is open to all political parties, even those who didn't take part in the dialogue. That would be the majority of the opposition, known as the Rassemblement or the Assembly. They are demanding a more inclusive forum.
That dialogue is not a constituent assembly. It's not a parliament. Who gave them the power to take resolutions which go against the Constitution?
Emily Yob for VOA News in Kinshasa.